God here. And it's football season. And it's like 100 degrees outside. Sorry about that. Welcome to Season 3 of Gods of Odds, hosted by two of my favorites, Brad Hoyseth and Dave Daba.
Welcome to the Gods of Odds. That is Brad Hoyseth over there in beautiful Southern California. I'm Dave Daba up in Northern California. And thanks so much for tuning in to the Gods of Odds for week and number 11 of your National Football League season. The show that was on hiatus last week because of COVID. That's right, Brad. You are beating me in the stat of not ever having COVID. I am still in what I like to call the COVID cloud. I think at one point during my COVID experience, I woke up in cold sweats with this concept that somebody with the last name Saturday had just been named a head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, despite the fact that he had never actually coached in college or high school before. Brad, did that really happen?
Yeah, and Saturday had a pretty good Sunday. He won, right? So I wonder if he should change his name to Jeff Sunday. I mean, look, that was obscene. The guy had never been a head coach anywhere. And, we always hear this undertones, this rumbling whenever there's coaching changes and how people aren't getting opportunities. And, I don't even know what to make of that one. I mean, there's so many good coaches out there that have coached at a high level. Yeah. But what does that say about your Las Vegas Raiders, Dave, and that they couldn't win that game? What, are you kidding me?
It's like, how do they become? I just don't even know what to say about the Las Vegas Raiders. But I will say this, like when I saw, in all seriousness, because I had seen Saturday on, various ESPN shows the week before, and he does a good job. He seems he is a little bit of a loose cannon. Obviously knows what he's. It's not like the Colts hired you or me who have never played in the National Football League, never worked with Peyton Manning before. Yeah, Saturday at least had a lot of experience in the NFL. So I was sort of curious to see what happens. I think Josh McDaniels, with that post-game press conference that the Raider quarterback put on, it's like keep all of that stuff in house. Don't do that stuff publicly unless it's at the end of a season. Would be my take on that.
Didn't you remember last year when the Raiders had the interim coach and he made a run and got into the playoffs? I mean, what were they thinking at that point? I mean, I remember Derek Carr came out after the regular season, before they had their playoff game, and he said, "This is the most fun I've ever had on a team now, suddenly, with this interim coach, and it's the closest I've ever had a team feel." And then all of a sudden they blow the guy out for Josh McDaniels. And here we are sitting here half a season later, and the Raiders are in a bad way.
Yeah. And when you actually look at like the last like 6 or 7 draft picks before this year, the Mike Mayock picks is like, like in the first 3 rounds, I don't think there's anybody left. Either in jail, flat out cut, or just traded off to a different team. So, it's interesting. We haven't seen Mike Mayock resurface on television since the demise of the Raiders last year. And while we've seen my good friend Herm Edwards, who I had the opportunity to spend a afternoon with one day, Brad. You might not know this. At an American Girl doll store.
No.
as both of our daughters at the time were into American Girl dolls. And so this is back when Herm was over at ESPN, well before he made the jump back to ASU. So anyways, all right, Mr. Hoysef, we've got the top 10 games worth actually spending some money on this week. I will let you kick it off.
All right, Dave. First, I'm going Lions at Giants. And the Giants are a 3.5-point favorite at home against those gritty Lions. And I was thinking to myself as I was watching the Lions last week, Dave, that, they don't win many games, but this is legitimately one of the more entertaining football teams to watch. They really are a lot of fun to watch because they don't play any defense at all. But they do. They score at will. I mean, they're really fun. I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown and the running backs and they got one of the best offensive lines in all of football. I mean, if you can keep Jared Goff upright, you're doing something right. Jared Goff can throw the ball if he's got time.
Oh my God. What is today's date? November 17th of the year 2022. Brad Hoysef finally admits Goff can throw the ball.
He can throw the ball as long as he's standing upright. But the problem is that if you ask him to move it all, he's a dead man. And so the point I'm trying to make, the Lions are fun. The Lions to score a lot of points. The Giants are a little bit more offensively challenged. If Daniel Jones is a little bit off, it seems like a lot of times they're winning games because Daniel Jones is taking off and running and getting big first downs for them. They don't have a lot of weapons on offense outside of Saquon Barkley. They just don't. And so I thought 3.5, I really like the extra hook. I'm going to take the Lions, who have now emerged again, Dave, as one of my favorite teams. Remember 2 years ago, I had the Lions win in the NFC North, and that failed miserably on me. But I am enjoying watching the Lions. Now that I say that, probably next week on Thanksgiving, they'll throw up a donut. And, they'll look off.
I'm like everybody else in America. We're all on the Dan Campbell bandwagon. We want to see Dan Campbell do good, Brad. We want to see the Lions, at least have a little bit bite in that team. It's been let's be honest, it's just been a disappointing year to the point where 3 weeks ago, this early in the season, the Lions ownership team had to jump in and say we're behind the current regime, the GM and the coach. While I think the Lions might win a couple more games this year, I think Dan Campbell will save his job. I just don't think this is a game they're gonna win. Brian Daboll has done an excellent job with this team. What I'm more impressed with, though, is the defensive side of the ball with this New York Football Giants team. If I asked you who are the 3 wide receivers for the New York Giants, I think both of us would be hard pressed to say. We say, well, one of them is actually playing for the Chiefs now, which makes no sense at all. So it's one of those things where if Saquon Barkley can stay healthy throughout this particular game, I don't see Detroit defense stopping them. I see time of possession in favor of the Giants. 3.5 is a little bit larger than I'd like this hook to be, but I'm not falling for your Lions this week. I'm going with the New York Football Giants.
Yeah, I'll probably regret it at some point, but they are kind of fun to watch.
They are.
They score a lot of points. Every game seems to be coming down to it. I mean, they got shut out a few weeks ago. I remember that. They looked terrible, but outside, you take that one game out of the mix, they've scored a lot of points. They've been fun to watch. They got St. Brown back a couple weeks ago, and they're flying out there again. And they lose Hawkinson. It doesn't seem to matter. They still went out and scored a lot of points last week. So, I wish you the best of luck there, Dave. You're going to get at least one text this weekend that says "Go Lions." There's going to be something.
Yeah. I mean, last weekend's series of texts sort of tapered off as the Minnesota Miracle in Buffalo was happening, and like I said earlier, and I won't beat this horse too much, but like it's COVID cloud for me in a lot of things, and like when I was in the throes of COVID, like the only thing I could watch on TV was The Voice, Brad. That's how in the cloud I was. So watching that Viking game last week against the Buffalo Bills, I was a little bit delusional, not really sure if what I was seeing was actually real. Did it really happen? Which takes me to the first game I'm going to bring up, which is Dallas at the Vikes. The Cowboys, for some strange, bizarre reason, are actually favored in this game. And maybe I'd agree with that if Cooper Rush was the starting quarterback heading into this one, not Dak Prescott. But I think when we look at this particular game, the reason Vegas has sort of done what they've done is they've said, well, we didn't believe in Minnesota before Buffalo. We still sort of don't believe in Minnesota. We think they're going to be a little bit they're due for a letdown after that big victory in Buffalo last week. And I just don't think that's the makeup of this team. Like, if I had to give reasons why I think the Vikings are going to lose to the Cowboys, it wouldn't have anything to do with letdown from last week. It would have more to do with the fact that this is a 4 p.m. game or 3 p.m. game for Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. So it's moving towards that not at 1 o'clock category, and most of the country is going to be watching this game, which is where Kirk struggles. So that's where I would see some potential issues. But I think Dalvin will, as weak as he can be through 3/4 of a football game, will have that one quarter where he'll break something, or Alexander Mattison will. And on the receiving core side, we all know how good Justin Jefferson is. I think they're going to get Adam Thielen going a little bit more. And their new tight end, I'm a big fan of already.
Yeah, I don't know. I've kind of, Dave, changed things on the fly here in this game. I think it's a really tight ball game.
Yeah.
I think the Vikings defense at times this year has really overperformed. I mean, I'm still really they've remained healthy on the back end.
It's just not like their strategy is just not that good. Like the middle of the field is wide open every game.
But Patrick Peterson has had a great year on the back end. And I just wonder how, at some point, that soft tissue issue is he's going to pull a ham. Somebody's going to get hurt back there, right? And so I'm always fearful. And they're not very good at stopping the run, which is kind of a Dallas thing. I heard some alarming stats this year. Dak Prescott's one of the worst quarterbacks in the league on third down in the entire league this year. And so you just wonder how long that experience is going to go on in Dallas. We've been hearing about it. And Jerry Jones, to his credit, is pretty slow to make changes.
Yeah.
Had to be a disappointing loss for Mike McCarthy and the boys last week. But what really concerns me in this one of the Vikings is Christian Darrisaw is a little bit dinged up. And if he can't play, I'm very fearful of Cousins' backside. And we know how he fumbles and coughs the ball up when he gets hit. So I've switched. I know it's only a 1-point line, which, it could go either way. The Vikings still have kicking woes, and I'm convinced we'll have them until the day I die. And so I'm going to take the Cowboys. I think Dallas bounces back this week. The Vikings, they got their energy. They got their big win. We could go on all day about that game and how that finished. That was nuts, right? And it was a great win for the Vikings, and I didn't see it coming, frankly. Wow. I thought they were going to get rolled up in Buffalo. But that's not about what's going on in the field. Like you said, for me, it's more about watching this team since about 1965. That has to be more concerned than anything,
Unlike Brad, I didn't have a summer of 69. So
right. No, I mean, I could be, and I've said this a couple of times, I think, on the show over the couple of years we've been doing this, that I could be in my most senile state as I get older, with tubes coming out of my arms and you name it, and I will never forget Dennis Green taking a knee against the Atlanta Falcons. Right? I mean, there's certain moments that just they will exist in your brain forever. And so whether it's that or the Drew Pearson push off or the Alan Page running the wrong way or Dennis Green taking a knee or having to watch that damn Burger King commercial with Steve Young running down the sidelines. I mean, it has been one nightmare after another, Dave. So even though we beat Buffalo, I'm still not convinced. I need about 4 Super Bowl rings before I get on the bandwagon.
Yeah. Like I first of all, I didn't think, Buffalo is as good as they've been advertised, sort of at this stage of the game in this season. Like it wasn't Buffalo week 1. This is Buffalo, week 10 of the NFL season. And, they're missing some key ingredients on the defensive side of the ball. And they still haven't really, figured out how to run effectively against other teams other than Minnesota. Because it's actually easy to run the ball against the Minnesota Vikings, and to your point about the Dallas Cowboys, to me, this is if the Cowboys play the Cowboys game that they should play, the Cowboys should win this game. All things being equal, I think like that's not what we're seeing, to be honest, with this Minnesota Viking team. We are just seeing some random strange things happen week in and week out. Last week on the defensive side of the ball, Dantzler, their young cornerback, was out. They had a rookie cornerback in. He got injured. He was out. They had a rookie, a redshirt rookie in replacement for him. And like they're definitely running into some depth chart issues. So while I'm not sold on this defense, I think this is going to be a ball control style game. And I think at the end of the day, something's going to happen. We'll get some revenge over what happened last year with Cooper Rush. So I've got the Vikes, despite Brad's valid points. I've got the Vikes still winning this one.
Okay, second question for you then. This is a quick one. If I had to give you an over-under of 1 kick missed by Greg Joseph, what would you take, the over or the under?
I'll take the over.
Okay. All right.
Like, he's going to miss at least one, right?
Oh, God, it has to. It wouldn't be a Vikings game if he didn't miss one. All right, let's move on to a game that like 17 people will be watching, and that's the Washington Commanders at the Houston Texans. And it has an over-under of 40.5. And I just thought this was kind of low, Dave. I mean, neither team, Washington in particular, is not very good defensively, but Taylor Heineke has a way about him of scoring points, and I just kind of like. I've always been a Heineke guy, that.
Yeah.
Anything but Cousins, right? And so I took the over in this. I thought 40.5 was pretty low. I just kind of feel like both teams have kind of found something offensively. The Commanders, Gibson has played well recently. They got a couple young wide receivers that are pretty talented, and the Texans are still getting a lot out of Brian Cooks or whatever it is, and so they've played better offensively. There's not a lot of interest in this game. I just thought 40.5 was really low, so I went the over.
Yeah, 40.5. Feels does feel pretty low. Like I could see this being, there being 60 points scored in this game or something close to that. And then at the same time, I could see the text, that I sent to you. God damn it, Brad, 17-10. It's like a Titan score. like tonight's Green Bay Packer victory over the Titans will be 17-10. So I'm with you. I'm just gonna agree. I mean, like, I really like Taylor. I think he does a good enough job. I really like Pierce a lot. Washington's defense is actually better, significantly better right now than the Texans defense. So I would definitely have the Commanders actually winning this game as well. As Riverboat Ron has turned the ship on this Commander season. So that's where I'm at with that one.
Yeah, it's probably both understand that life expectancy at their job is probably not great at some point. But both of them have been around, and they just don't have great lineups. But I don't think either team's defense is particularly good, which leads me to believe this thing will go over.
Yeah. Hey, so the speaking of life expectancies on head coaches, the next game I have on my slate is the Eagles at Jeff Saturday's Indianapolis Colts. And before we get into that, I did just want to point out, last week the Justin Jefferson catch, so many people have been saying it was the best catch that they'd ever seen in their lives. And I just feel like I've seen like 10 better catches in the NFL over the years. And I thought it was a bit of a to be honest, overreaction. And then I started to like think about it a little bit, Brad. And I was like, well, who's that Pittsburgh Steeler wide receiver that won the Steelers, won the game on like the last play of the game against the Arizona Cardinals and made a miraculous catch in the end zone? It was Santonio Holmes. And that might have been like the greatest catch, that had significance I think I'd ever seen in the NFL. Anyways, we try, while I'm wearing a Viking hat and I got all this Viking gear in my home office, I'm trying to be objective here. And I think that catch was way better. Anyways, so Jeff Saturday, proved that he could go into Vegas and beat a Las Vegas Raider team that quite frankly is just in trouble across the board. And now they're at home against the Eagles, and I'm sure the Eagles will win this game. I just don't think the Eagles are going to win this game by the 9-point spread that you have to give up to have the Eagles actually win it. And it will be interesting to see how the Eagles react to losing a game, and do they have a better game plan in motion for this Colts game. The Colts are obviously going to run the ball a lot. I don't think I don't know if you want to have a side wager, Brad, on whether or not we see another 40-yard run by Matt Ryan or not next week or this weekend. I would say I'd take we're not going to see Matt Ryan have another 40-yard run. But I think like this is a ball control. I think the Colts are going to stay in this game. They're going to make it close and interesting. Eagles will win, just not by 9.
Well, Dave, you managed to talk me into another flip-flop right there.
All right. I'm 2 for 2 on flip-flop.
And the reason, first of all, I originally had taken the Eagles I had taken the Colts in the 9 points originally. And the reason being is we've talked about it a few times this year, is that you take one key component out of an offense, and a lot of times they're just not the same animal.
Yeah. And
losing Dallas Goedert for Philadelphia, I think, is a huge loss at some point. It's going to catch up to him unless, until he gets healthy. Unless this new kid they're bringing in who's like a rookie out of wherever, unless he has just got more game than I think the loss of Goddard is huge. But the way where you talked me into taking the Eagles was this. You said Jeff Saturday beat the Raiders. And I got news for you. This Eagle team is not the Raiders. They're a far, far superior team to the Raiders. and they can play some defense. And I just the problem that you have if you're the Colts is if you get down by a couple scores, you really don't have the guys to get back in the game. And so I think at some point, even though they don't have Goddard, they got enough weapons where they're going to score at least at some point in the game. They're scoring 14 points in 5 or 7 minutes, and I just don't think Saturday's got the tools this Sunday. Let's just say, and I'm going to flip on that, and I'm going to take the Eagles and give the 9.
Yeah, let me be clear. I think the Eagles are going to win, just not by 9. And I'm glad I've been able to get you to flip flop twice so far. Would you be surprised if the Colts actually won this game? Would it shock you?
I would. I really would.
Okay.
I mean, I think the Eagles, despite their one game glitch last week where they didn't look very good, I still think they're a really good football team, and I still think the Colts are not a very good football team. So Jeff Saturday or not, I don't think it makes much difference.
I think the Eagles are just a lot like most of the other teams in the NFL that sort of have winning records right now, where they have good quarters and then they have silent quarters where their offense doesn't really do anything. Vikings are another example of a team like that could have a really good first quarter and then you might not hear from them again until the fourth quarter. The thing that scares me about the Eagles is just how poorly they've played in second halves of a lot of their games, which tends to be I tend to put that blame not on the players as much as I put it on the coaching staff for lack of adjustments and stuff like that. So I believe Saturday. And he's got 2 former head coaches on the team, and he's obviously reports out of Indianapolis is that in a week's time he's got like everybody at least heading in the same direction. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think he'll lose this week, but he'll keep it close.
Yeah, one name that I picked up off the waiver wire this week, Dave, because I had Dallas Goedert on my team.
Yeah.
Kid he's a rookie by the name of Grant Calcaterra. There you go. Remember that one. Grant Calcaterra. And one of the reasons I picked him up is because he lives like 5 miles from me in Santa Margarita. So that's where he's from. So I don't know. I had to pick up somebody, and the tight end position was pretty depleted. So, all right. Well, who is it? Is it me next? Okay.
Yeah.
A team we've been talking about a lot, Dave. The Raiders are at the Broncos, and it's a race to see who's going to get whacked first as a coach. But I think I don't know. It's a tough choice. Both these guys, you could justify getting rid of them. Denver has started to play a little bit better. I just feel like Denver's defense is really good. They're giving up 2.5. The Raiders have to be just completely freaked out after losing at Indianapolis. That was I can't imagine how Josh McDaniels is feeling right now, but the Carr experience is just not working. It's not winning games in Las Vegas, and at some point you got to wonder if they're going to turn the page on that. But they're going to have to live out this season anyways with it, and the whole pickup of the big wide receiver during the offseason is turning out not to have been the one pickup they needed to get themselves over the hump. They obviously need a lot more, and they don't have it right now. They're going into Denver. It's a tough place to win. Denver's giving up 2.5. I think it's a close game, but I'm going to take the Broncos.
Yeah. This was my I think in our sheet that we put together, I used the 3-letter word UGG to describe my my prediction in this one. And I just like Nathaniel Hackett is just that bad as a head coach. I think he's actually significantly worse than Josh McDaniels is as a head coach. Remember, McDaniels is going back to Denver where he essentially failed the first time as a head coach. So we have that sort of thing. He's got an opportunity to knock out another guy. But I have to say, Brad, like I just can't have my starting quarterback, Derek Carr, do what he did last week in a press conference and expect that the team to sort of like rally behind him, which is really what Derek Carr was trying to accomplish there by wearing his heart on his shoulders. And despite everything I just said, like, do you really think Russell Wilson is going to like have a great game? Like, it doesn't matter how bad the Raider So like, I'm totally on the fence. I'm like literally in the, about to flip flop my pick from the Raiders to the Broncos. And it is the wise thing to actually do. So I'm just going to go ahead and do it. I'm gonna go ahead and agree with you, Brad, that the Broncos, despite the 2.5 points, are gonna win this game. I got nothing else on this one.
It's still the COVID. What did you call it? The COVID cloud, Dave?
COVID cloud, man.
Let me ask you this: how far does this COVID cloud thing go? I mean, can you get away with like not taking out the garbage or anything like that?
No. Like it just sits there if it doesn't. In my house, it doesn't. It doesn't get taken out unless I take it out. So
okay.
But like there were, I will say this: there were bags of stuff that was set aside for Goodwill, just to hanging out in the hallways for about a week and a half. Nobody.
Yeah, see, these are the kind of things I'm looking for, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm wondering if I can get away with not doing the grass or what, stuff like that.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, it's good to see you doing well, and we missed not doing the show last week, and
definitely.
I guess I should probably go into why I'm wearing my Gopher sweatshirt today, Dave. This is our weekly segment where we talk about our gear. I dug out, by the way, the oldest Gopher sweatshirt I have. I got like 4 of them. And the reason being is I'm looking at the schedule of the Gophers, and there's no little brown jug game this year, Dave. I mean, that's just obscene, right? Yeah. Now, this week they play for the Florida Rosedale, and the next week they finish up with the Axe and stuff like that. But it's just so wrong on so many levels that what college football has come to now. Now there's talk of SC and UCLA going to the Big Ten. I mean, college football has just blatantly looked at the fans and said, we don't care. We're just here to make money. That's it.
Yeah. Have you seen like the Big Ten promo ad that they run where they show it in the middle of some of the football games, but they show all the teams in the Big Ten, and they show how it they go from the West Conference to the East Conference, and then I caught the commissioner of the Big Ten on Peacock at some point this week because they just announced their NBC contract for the next couple of years for the Saturday night college football games on NBC and Peacock for the Big Ten, huge contract for the Big Ten. And they show it, like all the way through to New York. And that's the Big Ten sprawls all the way through to New York. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, who's in New York? And then I was like, oh, Rutgers. Like, what? Well, you never think of college football and you never think of New York to begin with.
Isn't Rutgers in New Jersey?
Right. Rutgers is in New Jersey, not New York. But, Giants and Jets don't actually play in New York anyways. So it's the same sort of thing. I will say this too, COVID, unfortunately for me, cost me the opportunity to see the Golden Gophers in Nebraska. And I had to cancel that trip. And so Gophers won. They won last week. I think they have 7 wins on the season. They've got a chance to finish with 2 more wins, which I doubt they'll win both of their remaining games. And it's going to be another sort of decent year for Mr. Row the Boat, and the Golden Gophers, and yet I don't think either of us really believe they're ever going to go anywhere with PJ Flick as a head coach, especially with the style offense that they're continuing to run.
Can you hear this outside right now? Can you hear
Dogs
my
agree.
Unbelievable, right? That's because they've already watched enough of the Gophers in their lifetime at 6 months old.
Yeah.
No, hey Dave, the Gophers are tied for first place.
Yeah, I know.
And they get a team this week in Iowa, which has been the Gophers have been owned by both Iowa and Wisconsin, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and Michigan for the most part. But they get Iowa and Wisconsin over the next 2 weeks. And, a win against Iowa, and it goes from a 4-way tie for first down to, at the minimum, a 3, maybe even a 2. I don't know who Illinois and Purdue play, but this is still a winnable conference. You could see the Gophers playing in the Big Ten title game if they win the next 2 games.
You know what? Let's win this first game this week, and we'll take it one game at a time. All right. So super quick. I've got my next game for you, Mr. Hoysef. And this was a game that I was like, was probably I was trying to decide if I was going to take the Patriot game or take the Steelers game, and it was a tough decision. So I went with the Bengals at the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Bengals are favored by 4.5. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see the Steelers, keep this game close. But at the end of the day, I think that the Bengals and Joe Burrow will find a way to squeak out a 6 or 7 point victory in this one. I feel like with the Bengals this year, I keep waiting for them to really turn the corner. And it's sort of like 1 week I feel like they are, the next week they're not. And that's what it's been like with this team. But I think things are serious enough now that they're going to continue to move in the right direction. And quite frankly, the Steeler team's just not that good in a lot of places. So I'm going with the Bengals.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just think I watch the Steelers team and I just don't see a lot. I just don't see a lot of hope. I mean, it's I like Mike Tomlin. I love the organization and what they've meant to the league and the history and the way they're tough, and they are tougher at home. So historically speaking, they're a challenge in Pittsburgh. But I just look at the mannerisms of Tomlin these days when he's on the sidelines, and he just looks like a guy that says, you know what, we just don't have it. And Pickett's, hey, to his credit, he put the rookie in there, and he's going to take his lumps. No question about that. But again, the Bengals, I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, without Jamar Chase, they're not the same team. And so to me, it's going to really depend on whether or not Jamar Chase plays. I have a sense he's not going to play, but I just think that the Steelers are not talented enough to beat the Bengals, whether the Bengals have Jamar Chase or not. Kind of the same logic that I used with the Eagles and flipping and taking the Eagles with that Dallas Goedert. I'm going to do the same thing on the Bengals. I think the Bengals are going to win this game by more than 4.5.
Yeah. It's like, as you were saying that, I was like, well, the Chicago Bulls haven't been the same team since Michael Jordan left either. This is, Jamar Chase is such a key component to this team. And I think it's taken him a couple weeks to sort of get back on track without him. Mixon is sort of coming around a little bit. I think that the Bengals in next year's draft will definitely target a replacement running back for him. The running backs are a dime a dozen, and I totally disagree with you on that. I think, two great running backs used correctly. You can win a lot of games in the National Football League still that way. Just look at this Tennessee Titan team. They went like an entire game without actually throwing a pass to a wide receiver and almost beat the Kansas City Chiefs a couple weeks ago. So the only thing Pittsburgh really has going for it in this game that could get interesting is TJ Watt is back from injury. He is really how like a lot of times we talk about certain players being really significant to one side of the ball or the other. This is one of those guys that just quite frankly, it's like the engine of that defense. And when he's there, they play a lot better. Still, I'm with you. I think the Bengals will hold on for this win.
So TJ Watt's back. The question is, Dave, does he make it to the second or third quarter before he gets injured again? I mean, the guy's always hurt, right?
Yeah. It usually happens in the second quarter. It usually doesn't make it to halftime.
So the next up for me is the Browns at the Bills. I held off on some of that Bills conversation. We were talking about the Vikings and whatnot. To me, Josh Allen doesn't look right. I sent my buddy a text that we were watching the game, and he's suddenly become a Vikings fan now that they're good. Yeah. And I said, Josh Allen in these situations has a tendency every once in a while to just throw a pick. He tries to make something happen out of nothing that's there. And sure enough, the very next play, he throws that interception and Patrick Peterson interception, and the Vikings win.
Yeah.
But I don't think Josh Allen is quite healthy, Dave. I mean, I saw some passes this last week that, you just don't see that out of him all that often. And I think that elbow is still bothering him a little bit. The thing that concerns me here, though, is it's a 9.5-point line, and they're projecting maybe a blizzard in northern that section of New York. So, which would lead you to believe that it'll have to be a running game. And the Browns, that's their forte. They like to run the football. So I'm going to take the Browns 9.5 points just based on the weather forecast.
I'm absolutely with you on this one. I even if the weather forecast wasn't, as bad as it is, I still might have, gone in this direction just because, Cleveland can just, ball control, a big portion of the game. I mean, yeah, they're probably not going to win the game, but they can definitely run the ball a lot. And I hope nobody gets hurt or anything like that, but just for pure television experience, we saw some snow flurries, if you will, in the Vikings first half of that game last week. And so, blizzard football would definitely be worth watching. And we saw what the Patriots did at one point last year in a cold weather, bad weather game. They didn't allow their quarterback to throw the ball. I think he threw the ball like twice in that game. And I could see something sort of similar happening. And the Bills really don't have a running game. It's like we said it a couple of years ago. I said it, last year. I said it at the beginning of this year. I've said it numerous times throughout the season. And you at least have to have the ability to have a good occasional game running the ball. I mean, hell, even the Buccaneers, who had to travel all the way to Germany last week to hear John Denver's "Take Me Home" and on television to discover their running game. So I'm with you on this. Hey, by the way, Brad, just a side question. Why haven't the Buccaneers ran the ball better this year? Why has it just been Leonard Fournette when they have, Rashad, they had these other running backs just sitting there waiting to go? Why haven't they been plugged in at all? Just made no sense.
I think that's going to change this week, Dave. I mean, I really do. I think that was the beginning of the end of Leonard Fournette when he went out of that game with a little bit of a hip. Rashad White, they found out, can play.
Didn't we know before Rashad White could play?
When they had Ronald Jones, he was a better player. I've never been a huge Leonard Fournette guy. I mean, I know there's something that he offers. He's big, he's powerful, and he just wears on you. But it's not 1975 anymore, and you need a guy that can, get out in the open and has a little more explosiveness. And Rashad White's got an extra gear. He's got a quicker twitch. He can turn on a dime. Fournette's just not that guy, and they have to have some little bit more semblance of a running game if they're going to be effective. There's just way too much pressure on Tom Brady's 40-plus-year-old arm. They can't have him out there throwing it 45, 50 times a game and expect to win.
Yeah. Okay. So we both agree on the Browns. I've got, let's see here, Brad. Chiefs at Chargers on Sunday Night Football. For a while there, I thought the Vikes game would get flexed into that position, but it didn't. Kansas City going into Los Angeles. I think the Chiefs should win this game, but it's 7 points. I don't know who the wide receivers are going to be for this Charger team. But Austin Eckler didn't have a great game last week. This is the kind of game where Austin Eckler is going to have a big game against a weaker defense than they played last week. So I see the Chargers at least keeping it within 7. I've got the Chargers in this game.
Yeah, this is one of those games I would probably wait to see the injury report a little bit closer to Sunday. Because as I've mentioned a handful of times, the Chargers are just not as good without Keenan Allen. And, he's practicing a little bit this week, but, we've seen this with him since he got hurt in week 1. And this whole hamstring thing has just not gone away. And hopefully this time they'll bring him back and he'll be healthy, because I think the last time he was out there for about a quarter and a half and he retweaked his hamstring. So
yeah,
that's my concern there, is the Chargers are pretty underwhelming offensively if they don't have the guy that can move the sticks. Some of the young guys have made, the Palmer and DeAndre Carter, they've made some nice plays here and there. But you can only put so much pressure on Austin Eckler and the quarterback. And as you know, I don't like their coach at all. So, Andy Reid has got to be worth at least 4 or 5 points on his own. I'm trying to talk myself into a flip-flop day, but I'm not going to. I'm going to agree with you, and I'm going to take the Chargers, and I'm going to take the 7 points.
Yeah, I was really hoping you were heading towards that. You're heading towards that light. You could see the light, and then you backed away.
There will be more Kansas City fans at that game. That's one prediction I'll make.
Wow. Yeah, I mean that's it. That's a given. I'll say this. The support for the Chargers in LA has been better at SoFi than I thought it was going to be. And a couple weeks back when I caught COVID in Los Angeles, Brad, at the old Great Western Forum for the Harry Styles Harry Ween concert, which is ultimately what did me in, I believe. SoFi, it was the first time I'd seen SoFi in person, at least from the outside, and just an incredible looking arena, I will say. All right, Mr. Hoysef, I think you're on to your last pick of
right, and my last pick involves another team that plays in that stadium. They're not there this weekend, but it's the Rams at the Saints. And boy, oh boy, Dave, the Rams are unwatchable. I mean, they are a bad football team. And now you take out Cooper Kupp, and you're just looking around going, well, who's going to make a play? And, I think it's going to be Stafford back at quarterback this week. He's kind of going through the final phases of concussion protocol. And it kind of looks like he's going to play. But who's the big guy in the offense now? Tyler Higbee? I mean, Van Jefferson. I mean, I don't even know who they got anymore. I mean, it's a really bad offensive football team, maybe one of the worst in all of football, which is really strange for a team that just won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And, I don't have any affinity for the Saints at all, but the Saints are giving 3. I mean, The Rams have fallen on hard times very quickly, Dave.
It's such a Los Angeles Laker thing to do. And I know Brad's not like a big basketball guy, but where you go into the bubble and you win an NBA championship, and then that next year, you can't even make the playoffs, and then before you know it, you're one of the worst teams in the NBA. And we all know what the Rams did last year. They mortgaged everything into that one season. We've seen a bunch of teams attempt to do that over the years and not succeed. It just so happens that they pulled it off. And then, key injuries, retirements, inability, sort of a poor job by the general manager to bring in other key assets during the initial phase of the rebuilding stage. Because they went from winning a Super Bowl to rebuild overnight. And I don't think anybody really believed that's what was happening here, including the people inside the Rams organization. But I was talking about Matthew Stafford so hard last year. How many times, Brad, did I have Matthew Stafford skiing down the backside of Career Mountain early in last year's shows? Guys can go back and watch them. We put together a compilation of them maybe one day. But Stafford, leads the league in interceptions. He's, he doesn't do well with pressure, and he's got an offensive line that, it's great that he's coming back this week. I'm not wishing injury on him at all, but is not going to be a pretty day. And we haven't even talked about the Saints and how bad they are. This is just that I think we both agree that the Rams are terrible.
I know, Dave, but there's one thing you're missing here.
Yeah.
Is that while you were talking, I was changing the bet from the line to the over under, which is at 39, and I'm going under, Dave. I flip flopped the game on you right there, and I'm going to make you think on your feet. And I'm taking the under because I'm hearing also the Rams, they might have lost 2 more offensive linemen this week. So there's nobody to protect this guy. They got no running game. They got no passing game. They got no Cooper Kupp. They got nothing. And I think the Rams will be hard pressed to score 15 points in this game. I really do. And so
all right.
I'm going to take the under at 39. I'm taking the under.
It's unprecedented. That's an unprecedented move we've never had happen on this show before. Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and eat the bait, and I'm going to take the over. Just because I don't know. Okay, do I think the Saints could score, 25 points, 30
you're
points?
You're putting your money on the red rifle. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, and and I want to see a certain tight end put me over the top. And I can't wait to send my Taysom Hill text to Brad on Sunday.
Hey, let me tell you something. I've actually picked up and gotten really, really good production out of an actual tight end for the Saints in Juwan Johnson in recent weeks. That is a guy that looks like a player to me.
There you go. All right, Brad. Let me take you to Monday Night Football, our last game of the week. To Mexico City we go, Mr. Hoysef. And the 49ers at the Cardinals in Mexico City, if you can call it that. 49ers favored by 7.5. I still think they were crazy to let Jeff Wilson Jr. go. I thought that was a bad move, just a bad move. Like Jeff Wilson Jr. right now is a better running back than Elijah is. So who's coming back from injury. I look at this and Mike Shanahan's one of these guys that tends to overthink things and tends to keep games closer than they actually really should be. I don't know who's starting at quarterback right now for the Cardinals. I think I'd feel almost better if it was Colt McCoy starting, because the offense, the strategy will be different with Colt versus the Kyler Murray strategy. And I think it would be a little bit more straightforward in terms of what they're trying to run if Colt McCoy is the starting quarterback in this game. So while I think the 49ers are going to win, I'm not willing to give up that amount of points. So I can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm taking Cliff Kingsbury and the Cardinals in Mexico City over the 49ers.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. The reason being is, first of all, I didn't realize the game was in Mexico City. I just didn't look at it that closely, Dave. But it's still considered a home game from the Cardinals, and the Cardinals are terrible at home games. One thing that's a little alarming with this COVID cloud thing is you called him Mike Shanahan, and so.
Oh wow, that's bad.
I know. Yeah, exactly. I mean, this whole thing has really gotten the best of you.
Is North Turner still the offensive coordinator of the Commanders?
John Elway is still the quarterback for him, But no, I'm going to take the Niners on the road. I just don't think the Cardinals are very good. DeAndre Hopkins is a little dinged up. They're just not a good football team. And I think the Niners have got enough defense that they're going to put pressure on the quarterbacks to try and make plays, and they're going to turn the ball over a lot. And so I'm going to take the Niners. I know the 7.5 is that extra little hook is a little more than I really wanted to spend on it, but I'm going to take the Niners. They were my preseason pick to go to the Super Bowl, and by God, they got to start winning some games, Dave.
Yeah, there you go. And there's the passion of the Hoysaf coming out. All right, Brad. Well, there you go. That's our top 10 games worth actually spending some money on. We recorded this on Thursday, November 17th in the afternoon. Tonight, Brad, we've got the Packers at home against the Tennessee Titans in what looks like a must-win opportunity and need for the Green Bay Packers in that one. I think the Packers have woken up a little bit, just enough to beat the Tennessee Titans as good of a head coach as I think Mike Vrabel is. I think Aaron Rodgers might explode in this in a short week on what you would consider to be generally unwatchable Thursday night football. One of the best parts about this Thursday night football package, though, Brad, is the pre and post game shows. So sometimes I tune in for those because those are produced extremely well. Anyways, Brad, any quick thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, I'm just hoping for a touchdown from Christian Watson tonight. I have another young guy that I picked up off the waiver wire this week. Yeah. I think Aaron Rodgers might have finally found his guy, Dave.
All right, I agree. He's got to show up. I've got him in tonight's game as well. All right, thanks everybody for tuning into Gods of Odds. It's week number 11. That is Brad Hoysef over there in beautiful Southern California, all golden gophered out. I'm Dave DeBopp in Northern California, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports-filled week.